Hey guys, David Len here. We want to talk about Little Wars. It's a convention that takes place in the Midwest every year from HMGS. It's the biggest miniature or the biggest historical miniatures convention I've ever been to. I think the only one I know of that's bigger would probably be Historicon, which I think is on the East Coast. I haven't been to it yet though, but I like going there to play all the different games and stuff. These guys spend all year making the terrain for the games and stuff, and it's just absolutely fantastic. But first game I played was Aliens vs. Predator. This guy had this 3D printed terrain that looked just great. That was a fun game, but it was pretty hard because the aliens, even though the Predators were much more powerful than the aliens were like zombies. At every turn they'd roll and more would come on the map. And there was I think there was 3 entry areas for them. So if you were on that section of the map, you'd roll to see if they entered. But if you and the other guy's forces were on 2 sections, then you'd have to roll for the two sections, and even more aliens would occur. Or if you're stupid and had forces on all 3, then they'd have to roll 3 times, and you'd lose the game for sure. But we essentially we almost finished the game. There just wasn't enough time, but it looked a little sketchy as to whether we would have won or not, because there was just something we were trying to bring to a certain location and leave, but it's debatable whether we would have got there in time. But it was a fun game. What was your first game on Friday?
Actually, I was there on Thursday. Thursday night I did.
I was there Thursday too. I'll mention that one next.
Yeah, Lake Ontario, 1815. This is a hypothetical battle about battle between British and American ships on Lake Ontario. The War of 1812 had continued. By this time, both sides had built like first-rate ships, about 80, 90, 100 guns each. And this time they sailed off to battle. This was one of those you had to write your orders, and the thing is you had to use this arc to determine how your ship turns. That takes a while to adjust to it. And all I remember is that we battered each other really good, and it was more like a stalemate, even though I think there was one British ship that was like 55% damaged. Mm-hmm. And if he had another ship that actually came between him and my fleet, the American fleet, so to absorb any damage. So we kind of, it was a stalemate, but we kind of considered it kind of an American tactical victory, or marginal victory. So, all right.
On Thursday I played Night of the Living Dead. It was based on a White Dogs games hex and shit game about Night of the Living Dead. I had all the characters and stuff from the original black and white movie. It was done with miniatures though, instead of using the board game and the chits. It was pretty awesome. All the main characters were there from the game. You had vehicles and stuff, police arriving, rooms you could board off and stuff, and of course the zombies could knock down the boards. That was a fun game. I got the medal for that one, for killing the most zombies. All right, what's the next one you played on Friday?
Okay, Friday, first of all, I played Terror in Vinland. This is a hypothetical, or maybe really bad. American Indians attacked Viking settlement. And I was on the Indian side, and we actually do our weight with numbers and swift maneuvering. We are actually, we burnt one of their ships. We end up burning the mead hall, which is like their headquarters, and we basically, it was considered a scraggling victory.
That sounds interesting, actually. Because I mean, if you wanted to make something like that realistic, obviously you would have the Indians outnumber the Vikings by a large amount. The Vikings had better weapons and better training, but the Indians would have them so outnumbered. Mm-hmm. So yeah, that sounds pretty accurate, how it should be. As far as Friday for the afternoon game, I was supposed to play Memoir 44, but I get to the table, and I think it was for 8 players or something. There was 9 people there, and someone must not registered for the game and just sat down to play and didn't admit to it. So I was just like, fine. I was like, I'll just go to the dealer's area, which is good because I ended up getting a lot of stuff from the dealer's area that I wanted. So actually, I didn't mind that much missing that game, even though I like Memoir 44. What was your evening game on Friday?
Okay, Attack at Hoth. This is another Scragglings versus the Vikings game. Except this time I took the role of the Vikings. And this was a combination of poor deployment by the Vikings, countered with great intelligent deployment by the Scragglings. We originally deployed our troops on the hills to keep the Scragglings away. And then we realized, starting at turn 2, that we had a ship docked. If the Scragglings get to the ship and set it on fire, we've lost big time. And so all of a sudden we gave up our good defensive positions to run across the table to get to the ships, and it was too late. They, by the time my guys got there, they were like one turn late to do anything. So, one thing I recommend at the end of it is that the Vikings that are armored, we had some of them with like chainmail or hard leather, is that they should get like +1 to the die roll for effect. They should be like a little harder to kill. Maybe enough that instead of killing them on one turn, it takes 2 turns to kill them. That'll be like a force multiplier. And he said he's thinking about doing that.
Cool. Yeah, the evening game I played on Friday was Star Wars Escape from Hoth. Essentially, it used full thrust rules with Star Wars miniatures. What was going on Hoth when the AT-ATs and stuff took the base, and then you saw the transports at the end leave. You were a rebel fleet trying to escort these transports out of there, and there were some Imperial Star Destroyers trying to stop you. So we weren't able to destroy any Star Destroyers, but we did some damage to them. But we got a sufficient number of transports out of there to win the game. I ended up getting a medal for that game too. That was a good game. That was the first. I've owned Full Thrust the game like several times and never got a chance to play it. So that's the first time I actually played those rules. It's not bad for a spaceship game. It's actually pretty good. All right, where are we at now? Now we're at Saturday morning.
Okay, I have the Battle of Veturius. This is a battle in the Second Punic War where Hannibal's brothers bring in reinforcements to turn the tide of the war. And in real life, the Romans force-marched extra troops and fought them at the Veturius River or whatever that place was. In the battle we fought, I fought on the side of Carthage. And talking to the guys I'm playing with, they know very little about ancient warfare, and they got to learn somehow. So what I did was I took command of 2 Gaul units. They had low morale because they're basically a little bit in a rabble, and on the right flank the cavalry unit, because in those days cavalry was worthless. So, and let them have the fun, they can fight with the line units and get involved in the battle. They also, the Carthage had 3 elephants. Now, I complained at first that they should spend more time softening up the light troops before they sent in the elephants. In the first round they lost 2 out of 3, but the third one did some major damage before it was forced to retreat. I underhand marched the Gaul units through this forest swamp. And when I got to the edge, he stupidly charged me with his cavalry unit, which I obliterated despite my low morale, low quality units. Then I turned the flank on the nearest Roman unit, where they got a lesson in poor quality units can be deadly if they're on your flank. And actually, I only failed one morale check that forced me to fall back. And actually, I shaken, but I told them we weren't shaken. We just stopped for lunch. And I told them the battle cry, one unit was, "Be afraid, be very afraid," and the other one, battle cry was, "Rome will never conquer Gaul." And on the right wing, first of all, whoever had the Romans stupidly charged his cavalry unit into a Carthaginian unit, and the Carthaginian unit was wiped out, but the Roman unit was actually, this is one of those, it started with 12 figures, and it ended up only one stand, but he passed his morale check. And so next turn I charged with my Carthaginians and wiped him out. And at that point they called the game. And for some odd reason the referee of this game, the game master, didn't give me a medal for it. He said I walked away, and I was there for a while.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, so maybe he'll mail it in. So, alrighty.
All right, and then for, what was this, Saturday morning, I played 3D Panzer Blitz. That was cool. It was essentially Avalon Hill Panzer Blitz using Pico armor miniatures. And the terrain was kind of like a hex terrain setup, 3D hex terrain. It was pretty cool. We played that, first game I was the Germans, and then the second game you switch sides, and then I was the Russians. I think as the Germans we lost, and then as the Russians we won. But yeah, that was a lot of fun. I mean, Panzer Blitz itself is a fun game, but it's even better with miniatures. What's your afternoon one for Saturday?
Galleons of Mars. This is Space 1889, airships on Mars. The scenario was that a spy was fleeing from the Martians to safety in the British territory, but he crashed. And the British are coming to retrieve him. Of course, we Martians are coming to retrieve him too. And we fought it out, and the British managed to get him out in time. Yeah, I have. This is another roll for initiative one. That, what it was is this is like an example of any type of naval game where you're unfamiliar with all the ships and everything. So I had one ship that was dependent on wind power. It was called a kite. Another one that was powered. And at time it was hard for me to coordinate the two of them, and so, but he got away with his spy, and that was that.
Yeah, Saturday afternoon game I played was that Stink Isn't What You Think, a Pulp Adventure. Essentially everyone had a bunch of pulp troops, and you were given like a mission. My mission was I had to prevent one of the other forces from occupying two buildings. So the game was actually fun to play, and I used some interesting pulp figures and stuff. I was able to keep the enemy out of one building, but he took two others, so he ended up winning. But yeah, it was still a fun game overall. Some of these pulp games are actually a lot of fun. This one was using the Osprey rules. I can't remember the name of it, though. I played another one later in the convention with Pulp Alley rules, which I've played a few times. But all right, what about Saturday evening?
Well, I played Pulp Alley. This was a strange one. We were in Egypt, and we had to pick up like a plot, the little markers that tell you, and whoever picked up I think it was some major plot point, you got 5 points, and the other ones were like minor points, 1 point, minor plot points. So we had a big fight in the middle of the city. One person had it, and this is strange, is that one person gets to control the initiative. So it's like, I want it, so I'm sending my two characters. Well, first of all, the other guy had picked it up, but I had two characters who were within range, and they're going in and starting fight, trying to fight and take. Well, one of them took it, but then the next guy moved in and took it away, and it goes on like that. So I remember there were like 4 players and a 3-way tie for first place. So.
Yeah, I played Pulp Alley one in the evening too. It was called the Lady Pack. So I was in charge of some German forces, and I had to go into a city and find a spy and escort the spy back to prison. All the other people had their own little missions and stuff. someone else won. I think their mission was they had to get someone or something back to some boats, and they got there in time. But I was one turn away from getting my spy back. I think I ended up about 6 inches from the prison or something, or 5 inches. So the next turn I would have got it, but I got second place in that one. Pulp Valley is actually a lot of fun. I mean, it doesn't play like a historical game or anything, but it's just a fun little game, and you get to use all these cool miniatures you'd have no use for otherwise.
Yeah, because it was like, if you like those old movie serials, like Jungle Jim and stuff like that, you'll love Hoth Valley.
Yeah.
And Spice Smasher and a few others.
Yeah, and then Pulp Valley, one person gets to be the director, and then I forget if something or the other happens, then someone else becomes a director, and the director chooses who gets to move their forces in what order and stuff, so being the director is a pretty powerful position. Alright, and then as far as Sunday, would you play...
Trent's Reach. This is a American Civil War naval battle. It took place in January of 1865. It's noted for this is the only battle in which the Confederacy had more than one ironclad. They had 3 small river-class ironclads. Now, I had to look up afterwards that in the ironclads rules, it's 3 Confederate ironclads versus 1 Union, but there's an optional one for 2 to 3 Union ironclads. In real life, the opposing Union ironclad just kind of drifted with the river and stayed at maximum range. But the Confederates had all sorts of problems. At one point, 2 of the 3 ironclads were grounded because the tide went out. And another one was clearing away the minefields. And this is while some Union battery was shooting at them. So it was simultaneous movement. You had to write the orders down, and I wasn't used to the arc. So in real life, I ran aground for a turn or two. Oh, that was
what were you playing, Confederates or Union?
Confederates.
Oh, okay.
So it ended up being a big mess for the Confederates too, because by the time the second day came around, they decided, we're running low on coal. It's time to go back upriver and call it a day.
All right. So for the Sunday game, it was 1980 West Germany, 1982. Bonzo goes to the fallout shelter. I think it was either micro armor or pico armor. The game started about 2.5 hours late. And so I had to leave at 1 o'clock, and so I only got to play for like an hour and a half and stuff. But I didn't particularly like the rules they were using and stuff for that. So that game I didn't really get into. But the rest of the convention was awesome. You got 2 books there to show. Yeah,
this is from Neff Zinger Publishing. He tends to translate like books from French. French have a great military history. He has a unique books, like this one's the exploration and colonization of...
the expansion or exploration and expansion of French colonies in Africa from 1890 to 1891. Must have been a lot of activity if the book covers just a 1-year period.
And this one's Campaign of the French Army of Africa in Algeria.
This is 1835 to 1839. This is a lot of Foreign Legion stuff in here and stuff.
He also had one about the Vikings in France and Germany during the Viking era. That was translated from the French. Because speaking as an American, you get most of the information you have about the Viking era is their wars in England. And occasionally they'll make references, well, the Vikings are also hacking it out in France, okay, but that was one where it pointed out that at times the French had their own little civil war, which at times they hired Viking mercenaries. So, and he has a lot of interesting stuff, so that's worth buying. And I bought stuff from Enterprise Games. I bought a painting about a P-40 Flying Tiger from their artists. And I'm trying to think what else is there.
Oh, you bought those 2 books from them, those 2 for $45 books, or not books, games, I mean.
Yeah, one was the Battle of Aspen Essling. One of Napoleon's rare kind of defeats, even though we tend to blame his defeat on the fact that his only bridge over the Danube collapsed. It was more like he planned to attack, but he had to stop, but the Austrians attacked and were repulsed. So it was like he was still on the other side of the Danube, but he didn't achieve his objective. I forgot the nice shirt. Because the motto...
Oh, I meant to buy one of those. I forgot to.
Yeah, the motto of this year's theme of this year's convention was "Damn the torpedoes." We found out that at the Battle of Mobile Bay, the one Union ironclad that supposedly was hit by the mines was not. What had happened was it received a hit from one of the shore batteries that knocked the spar torpedo into the water in front of the ship. And that blew up, sinking the ironclad. Because
was this a Union ironclad?
Yeah, Union ironclad.
Oh, okay. I didn't know any of those got sunk in that war.
There was the Cairo was sunk because they were clearing mines the hard way.
Oh, okay.
Just run over it and get blown up. What it was is the night before the battle, they had the special operations, we would call it, and they retrieved some of the mines from the minefield, and they found out that it was eroded, that the main charge was soggy. But the the imploders, the igniters could work. So he's going full speed ahead through the minefield, and they were counting the explosion from the igniters, and I think 30 times they counted an explosion.
Oh, wow.
And that's on his flagship. So things you learn. I think one thing I was thinking was at Warlord Games. They have miniatures of heroes of the OSS, these various characters.
Oh, that's cool. 28 millimeter?
Yeah, like that. I was thinking you could use them in your role-playing game. And there was another one that had like Renaissance era personalities.
Oh, there was one set of figures I meant to buy at Little Wars. I think Badger Games carried them. They were used in one of the Pulp Valley games. It's essentially a bunch of British women from World War II, like in workers' outfits and stuff. I mean, that could be useful in quite a few games. At least it's kind of like terrain or NPCs or something.
Yeah.
I forgot to buy those, though. I should have.
And I forgot to buy a game from Academy Games. But I got the one tactical World War II combat on Guadalcanal, which is very good. And a Vikings in Britain campaign game. So I'll just have to wait till they'll have to wait till next year before I buy something from them. Alright,
that's all we got, guys. Thanks for watching. We'll have something new for you next week. Have a good one.